The market was alive with noise, a place filled with shadows and strange colors. Hundreds of aliens shouted in their own languages, their voices mixing together like thunder. The air was heavy with smoke and the smell of burning oils. The light of neon signs painted the crowd in red and green. This was no normal market. This was an auction of lives. On a raised platform, chained by the wrists, stood a young alien woman. Her eyes were wide with fear, her skin glowing faintly under the harsh lights. She was trembling, her thin body shaking as the auctioneer shouted her name, or maybe just a number. To them, she was not a person. She was food, fresh meat. One alien growled, lifting his claws in excitement. Strong bones, tender flesh. Another hissed, his many eyes glowing with hunger. The crowd laughed, they shouted prices, each bid higher than the last. To them, it was a game. To her, it was the end of hope. Her heart raced as the numbers rose. She knew what fate waited. She had seen others taken before her, dragged into darkness, never to return. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer to stars that no longer answered. In her mind, she was already gone. But in the back of the crowd, someone stood still. He was different, tall and broad, his face half hidden under the hood of a worn coat. His eyes were sharp, watching, but not like the others. He was not licking his lips. He was not laughing. He was only silent. When the price climbed high, the man raised his hand. The crowd turned, surprised, a human, here in this place, buying like them. The auctioneer slammed his staff and shouted, "Sold." The woman froze, her breath caught in her throat. Chains rattled as she was pulled down from the platform. The guard shoved her toward the human, their eyes filled with cruel humor. "Enjoy your meal," one sneered, handing him the chains. The crowd roared with laughter. The human did not laugh. He looked at her with calm eyes, steady and clear. For the first time that night, she felt confusion stronger than fear. Why did his eyes not burn with hunger? Why did he look almost gentle? He led her away through the narrow streets, the crowd fading behind them. The neon lights flickered above, shadows swallowing their path. She stumbled, the chains pulling her down, but he caught her, steadying her gently. No one had touched her like that before, without cruelty, without pain. "You are safe now," he whispered, his voice low, almost lost in the noise. Her eyes widened, her heart beating faster. Safe, the word felt strange, empty, impossible. She wanted to believe, but how could she, when safety had never existed for her? They reached a dark alley where the light could not reach. He knelt and unlocked the chains, letting them fall to the ground with a sharp clang. Her wrists were free, but she did not move, too shocked to even run. The weight of slavery was still heavy in her mind. "Go if you want," he said softly, "but if you stay, I will protect you." She stared at him, confused, trembling, her thoughts spinning. This was a trick. It had to be. No human, no alien, no one ever set a slave free. Yet here she was, her hands trembling, her chains lying broken on the ground. In the distance, voices rose, angry shouts echoing through the market. The traders had noticed something was wrong. The human pulled her closer, his eyes sharp again. "They will come for you," he said, "but I will not let them take you." She felt fear rise again, but also something new, a spark, small but real, a spark of hope. The night was still full of danger, and the hunters were already moving. But for the first time, she was not alone. The auction had ended, but the real story had just begun. The night outside the auction house was alive with danger. The human led the freed woman through the narrow streets, his steps fast and careful. She kept glancing back, her heart racing, expecting to see the guards at any moment. Every shadow felt like an enemy. Every sound felt like a threat. Her wrists still burned from the chains, though they were gone now. She touched them softly, as if to check if freedom was real. The human walked ahead, his coat brushing against her arm, his silence heavy. At last she whispered, her voice trembling, "Why did you buy me?" He did not look at her, his eyes scanning the dark alleys. Because you are not food, he answered simply. You are alive. The words struck her like a blow. She had never heard them before. To the market, to the galaxy, she was only a body, never a life. They turned into a hidden passage where the neon lights did not reach. The walls dripped with moisture. Broken pipes hissed in the distance. The woman's breath came quick, but the human's steps stayed steady. He moved with purpose, as if he had been here many times before. Behind them, angry voices echoed, guards calling, boots striking the ground. The auction house had realized their prize was missing. They are coming, she whispered, fear choking her voice. The human only nodded, his jaw set with quiet strength. Suddenly a light swept across the alley, harsh and white. Over there, a guard shouted, his weapon raised. The woman froze in terror, but the human pulled her down behind a broken crate. Shots of plasma burned the walls, sparks flying in the darkness. He drew his weapon, a simple human pistol, but his hand was steady. The guards rushed forward, their steps heavy, their shouts fierce. The human fired once, twice, the sound sharp against the night. 2 guards fell, the rest hesitated, fear flashing in their alien eyes. The woman could not believe it. He was fighting for her. No one had ever risked themselves for her life. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. Something inside told her to stay close to him. Come, he said firmly, taking her hand without waiting. He pulled her through the smoke, leading her deeper into the maze of the city. The guards shouted behind, but their voices grew distant as the 2 ran. The streets twisted, lights flickered, doors slammed shut as locals hid from the fight. They reached a rusted gate. The human forced it open with a shoulder. Beyond was a dark path that led toward the landing docks. The woman's breath came in sharp gasps, her chest tight with fear and exhaustion. But his grip never loosened, as if he would drag her to safety even if she fell. At last they reached a quiet corner where a small ship was waiting. It was old, scratched, and dented, but it was freedom. The human opened the hatch and pushed her inside. Her eyes widened at the warmth, the faint hum of the engines. He closed the hatch quickly, the sounds of pursuit fading outside. The ship lifted slowly, shaking as it rose into the sky. The woman gripped the seat, her heart pounding as the city lights fell away beneath them. For the first time, the stars seemed closer, almost within reach. She turned to him, her voice shaking. Why help me? Why risk your life? He looked at her, his eyes calm but unreadable. Because no one else will, he said, his voice low, and because you deserve more than chains. The words stayed in her heart, heavy and bright. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Only a single tear fell down her cheek. The engines roared louder, carrying them into the dark sky. The chase was not over. The hunters would not stop. But for this moment, she was free, and she was not alone. The market had tried to sell her as food, but fate had given her something else. Not death, not slavery, but a strange human whose kindness felt more dangerous than the guards. And deep inside, for the first time, she felt the spark of a future she had never imagined. The small ship drifted quietly through space, far from the noise of the alien market. Inside, the woman sat curled in the corner, her arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes kept moving, watching the human, waiting for his true face to appear. She had been freed before, only to be trapped again, and trust was harder than chains. The human worked at the control panel, his hands steady. He checked the scanners, adjusting the ship's course, every movement calm. At last he spoke, his voice even. You can rest, they will not catch us tonight. The woman flinched at the sound, her mind filled with old memories. She whispered, Why should I trust you? You bought me. You could still sell me again. Her voice shook with anger and fear, a storm that had no end. The human turned slowly, meeting her eyes without force. I did not buy you to own you, he said. I bought you to save you. The words felt strange in her ears, heavy, almost painful. She wanted to laugh, to scream, to tell him no one ever saved her kind. But his eyes did not waver. There was no hunger, no cruelty, only quiet fire. She looked away, afraid of hope, because hope was always the cruelest trap. The ship's hum grew louder as it cut through the black sky. The human moved to a small storage bay and returned with food. It was not much, just bread and a flask of water, but he placed it before her. "Eat," he said softly. "Your body needs strength." Her hands trembled as she reached for it. She sniffed the bread, half expecting poison, but hunger broke through fear. The taste was simple, dry, but it was real. It was not the taste of despair. For the first time in years, she ate without fear of a whip or chain. He watched her silently, then pulled a blanket from the corner. The fabric was worn but warm. He placed it gently over her shoulders. She froze, her breath caught. No one had ever given her comfort before. Her throat tightened, but she forced the words out. "Why are you doing this?" The human leaned back in his chair, his face calm in the dim light. "Because life should not be sold," he answered. "Because freedom is worth more than gold." His words were simple, but they struck deeper than any chain. Her heart beat faster, her mind fighting between belief and doubt. The woman studied him in silence, his scarred hands, his tired eyes. He did not look like a hero. He looked like someone who had lost battles of his own. But maybe that was why he understood, why he did not see her as food. Maybe broken souls could still protect each other. Her voice was softer now, almost breaking. "What is your name?" He hesitated for a moment, then said, "Call me Daniel." The sound of it was strange, human, yet solid, like stone. She whispered her own name in return, the first time she had spoken it in years. Daniel nodded, as if sealing a silent promise. The stars outside the window stretched across the black like rivers of silver. The ship was small, but for her it felt endless. It felt like a door opening. Still, fear sat in her chest, heavy, reminding her that hunters were not far. Daniel checked the scanners again, his brow furrowed. "They will not give up," he said. "Traders do not like to lose their prize." Her heart sank. The fragile moment of peace cracked like glass. But his voice grew firmer. "As long as I breathe, they will not take you." She stared at him, searching for lies, but there were none. He meant it, every word, and that frightened her more than chains. Because chains she understood, betrayal she expected. But kindness could break her heart in ways nothing else could. She pulled the blanket tighter, the warmth seeping into her skin. Her eyes grew heavy, her body giving in to exhaustion. Before sleep claimed her, she whispered, "If you lie, I will hate you forever." Daniel's answer came steady. "Then I will make sure you never need to hate me." The woman's eyes closed, her breath slowing, her first real sleep in years. Daniel sat in silence, watching the stars, guarding her like a soldier. Outside, the galaxy was vast and cruel. Hunters were already on their trail. But inside that small ship, for the first time, there was a fragile piece of peace. And though she did not yet know it, this human was not just a stranger. He was the beginning of something greater, something the galaxy itself could not understand. Not hunger, not chains, but a bond that could not be broken. The stars outside the small ship burned cold and bright. Daniel sat at the controls, his eyes fixed on the scanners. The woman, still wrapped in the blanket, sat near him, her body tense. She wanted to believe his promise, but fear still clung to her heart. The quiet did not last long. A sharp alarm cut through the ship, the scanner flashing red. Daniel's jaw tightened as he leaned forward. "They found us," he said. Her stomach dropped, her body frozen as the screen filled with dots. Hunters closing in. 3 ships appeared behind them, their lights glowing like predators in the dark. The woman gasped, her breath shallow. "They will take me back," she whispered. Daniel's hands moved quickly across the controls, his voice calm. "Not while I fly this ship," he said, and the engines roared to life. The hunters gave chase, firing streaks of plasma across the void. The small ship shook as energy blasts scraped the hull, sparks flashing across the panels. Daniel gritted his teeth, steering hard, weaving between drifting rocks. The woman clung to her seat, her eyes wide with terror. The hunters shouted over comms, their voices harsh and cruel. "Return the meat, human, and we will let you live," one growled. Daniel pressed the comm switch, his voice steady. "She is not meat. She is free," he said, cutting the line before they could answer. The hunters grew angry. Their fire grew heavier. One shot clipped the wing, sending the small ship into a spin. The woman cried out, gripping the blanket tighter. But Daniel's hands never shook, his voice firm. "Hold on." He pulled the ship into a sharp dive, rushing into a field of asteroids. The hunters followed, confident in their numbers. But Daniel flew with skill, guiding the ship between rocks and shadows. Each turn was precise, every move born of experience. The woman watched him, her fear slowly mixing with awe. This man, this stranger, risked everything for her. He did not ask for reward. He did not speak of gain. He simply fought, as if her life mattered more than his own. A blast struck close. The ship rattled, alarms screaming. Daniel cursed under his breath, pulling hard on the controls. "We cannot outrun them forever," he said, sweat on his brow. Her voice trembled. "Then what will you do?" Daniel's eyes narrowed, his voice low. "Then we make them afraid." He pulled the ship low against a massive asteroid, using its shadow as cover. The hunters sped past, their sensors blind for a moment. Daniel flipped the ship and fired, his shots striking true. One hunter exploded in a blaze of light, shards scattering into space. The woman gasped, shock filling her chest. Daniel did not celebrate, his focus sharp, his hands steady. "Two more," he muttered, pushing the ship forward. The hunters regrouped, furious, their weapons burning brighter. They chased him deeper into the rocks, their fire raining down. Daniel weaved and dodged, each move desperate but precise. The woman could only cling to her seat, her heart racing with every near strike. Another shot grazed the hull, filling the cabin with smoke. The woman coughed, fear gripping her throat. Daniel reached over, pushing the vents open, his voice firm. "Do not give up," he said. "We will survive this." At last he spotted a narrow gap between two giant stones. The space was tight, too dangerous for larger ships. Daniel pushed the engines hard, the ship groaning as it slipped through. The hunters tried to follow, but one struck the rock and shattered. Only one ship remained, circling outside the field. The woman watched the scanner, her hands shaking. "They will wait for us," she whispered, her hope fading again. Daniel nodded, his eyes calm. "Then we will wait longer." He powered down the engines, letting the ship hide in silence. The last hunter circled, searching, but found nothing in the shadows. Hours passed, the silence heavy, the woman resting her head against the wall. At last the scanner cleared, the hunter giving up and flying away. Relief washed over her, tears filling her eyes. She turned to Daniel, whispering, "You risked everything for me." He looked at her, his face tired but steady. "I told you," he said, "you are not theirs to take." The ship drifted quietly again, the danger fading into the distance. The woman touched her wrists, the scars from chains still burning. But now, for the first time, she felt the chains breaking inside her heart. She was no longer just prey, no longer just food, because someone had chosen to fight for her. And that choice meant more than the whole galaxy of stars. The ship floated in the quiet dark, the engines low, the stars endless. For the first time since the chase, there was silence, only the hum of machines. The woman sat near the window, her eyes lost in the silver rivers of starlight. Daniel checked the panels, but his thoughts were elsewhere. At last she spoke, her voice soft, almost broken. "You do not know who I am. You do not know what they did to me." Her hands trembled as she held the blanket tighter. Daniel turned to her, his voice calm. "Then tell me." The words came slowly, heavy like stones. She told him of her home, a small world filled with rivers and green skies. Her people lived in peace, simple lives with songs and stories. But the traders came, their ships dark and full of fire. They took us, she whispered, her eyes wet. They chained us, they sold us, one by one like animals. Her throat tightened, but she forced the words. My family was there, my mother, my brothers, all gone now, eaten, traded, lost. The cabin felt colder with every word. Daniel's hands clenched at his side, anger burning in his chest. He wanted to speak, but he let her voice carry. She had been silent for too long. Now her pain filled the air. I was the last, she said, her voice breaking. The last of my line, the last of my blood. And when they chained me at the auction, I thought it was over. Her eyes met his, sharp with despair. Why save me? Why fight when the galaxy does not care? Daniel leaned forward, his eyes burning with quiet fire. Because I care, he said, his voice steady. No one should live in chains. No one should be treated as meat. His jaw tightened. As long as I breathe, no one will sell you again. The woman stared at him, stunned by the weight of his promise. Her heart ached with something she could not name. She wanted to believe, but belief had always been dangerous. Yet his eyes did not lie, his voice did not tremble. She whispered, You speak like you know chains yourself. Daniel's gaze lowered, shadows crossing his face. I know what it means to lose everything, he said quietly. I know what it means to be powerless. The woman leaned closer, searching his expression, but he did not share more. Not yet, his silence heavy with secrets. Still, the truth she heard in his voice was enough. They were not the same, but pain made them closer than blood. Her chest felt lighter, though tears still burned her eyes. She pressed her hands together, whispering her people's song. The notes were soft, fragile, a melody that carried memory. Daniel listened, his eyes closing for a moment, letting the sound wash through him. When the song ended, the silence returned. The woman's voice shook as she said, I have nothing left. No home, no family, no reason. Daniel shook his head, his words sharp. You have a reason now, survival, freedom, and maybe more. She blinked, her lips parting. More, she echoed, uncertain. Daniel's eyes met hers, his voice firm. You are not alone anymore. The words sank deep into her heart, filling spaces she thought were dead. Her breath caught, and for the first time in years, she felt more than fear. She felt seen, not as prey, not as property, but as a living soul. And it was Daniel, a stranger, who gave her that truth. Outside, the stars turned slowly, the galaxy vast and merciless. Hunters still searched, traders still schemed. Danger waited on every world. But in that small ship, two broken lives shared something unbreakable. Not chains, not pain, but a promise carved in fire. The woman wiped her tears, her voice soft but steady. Then I will hold you to your word, Daniel. And he answered without pause, his eyes never leaving hers. Then I will never let you down. The ship drifted toward a quiet planet hidden on the edge of a forgotten system. Its surface was covered in thick forests and silver lakes, a place where few ships dared to land. Daniel guided the vessel down through the clouds, his hands steady on the controls. Beside him, the woman watched with cautious eyes, her heart heavy but also curious. They landed in a small clearing, the engines fading into silence. For the first time since her capture, the woman stepped onto soil without chains. The air was cool, filled with the smell of trees and rain. She looked around, stunned, as if freedom itself was strange. Daniel carried supplies from the ship, setting up a small camp near the water. The woman helped, though her hands shook from years of fear. Together they built a fire, its glow soft against the night. The crackle of flames felt different than the noise of chains. As they sat near the fire, Daniel spoke quietly. You are safe here for a while. They will not find us so easily. The woman stared into the flames, her voice low. Safe. It still feels like a dream. Daniel looked at her, his eyes warm. Then dream as long as you can. Days passed slowly, each one softer than the last. Daniel taught her human words, pointing at stars, trees, and fire. She repeated them, her voice awkward but growing stronger. In return, she sang the songs of her people, soft melodies that wrapped the forest in sorrow and beauty. They laughed sometimes awkwardly at first, but real laughter grew. The woman learned to cook simple meals, though she burned the bread often. Daniel pretended not to mind, eating it with a grin. Her heart softened, and she began to trust that his kindness was not a trick. But at night, shadows still crept into her dreams. She woke in fear, whispering the old cries of the auction. Daniel was always there, his voice steady. "You are free now, no chains, no masters." His words were like a shield, and slowly the nightmares began to fade. One evening, as the fire flickered low, the woman asked, "Why risk so much for me? You could have walked away." Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Because no one deserves to be alone in the dark." His voice carried a pain she did not understand, but she saw truth in his eyes, a shadow of his own past. Without thinking, she reached for his hand, her fingers brushing against his scarred skin. For a moment, neither spoke, but the silence was full of meaning. Their bond grew in quiet ways. She began to smile without fear. He began to laugh without walls. What started as survival became something stronger. Affection hidden in small touches, in shared meals, in words unspoken. Still, danger was never far. Daniel warned her. "The traders will keep searching. We cannot stay forever." Her heart sank, fear returning, but she whispered, "Then I will not leave your side." He looked at her with surprise, then nodded, "Nor I yours." The forest became their shelter, the stars their witness. Two souls broken by cruelty found comfort in each other. She no longer saw herself as meat, no longer as prey. With Daniel, she felt human, alive, more than she had ever dreamed. But even in this peace, shadows stirred beyond the sky. Hunters whispered of their loss. Traders burned with anger. Their time in the forest was borrowed, their safety fragile. And though love had begun to grow, danger would soon return. That night, as the fire died down, the woman leaned against Daniel's shoulder. Her voice soft, filled with something new. "When you bought me, I thought it was the end." He turned to her, his voice steady. It was the beginning. And in that moment, beneath the stars, love bloomed in the shadows. The peace of the forest did not last. Daniel knew it, and the woman felt it. The quiet nights, the soft fire, the songs under the stars, they were precious, but fragile. The galaxy was not finished with them yet. One morning, the ship's alarm broke the silence. Daniel rushed to the controls, his face hard. The scanners showed enemy signals approaching fast. The traders had found them. The woman's heart sank, her hands gripping the edge of the chair. "They are here," she whispered, fear flooding her voice. Daniel looked at her, steady and calm. "Then we fight." The engines roared, lifting the ship above the trees, the forest shrinking below. In the sky, 3 hunter ships closed in, their weapons glowing. The battle began with fire. Plasma streaks cut across the sky, explosions echoing in the clouds. Daniel steered hard, weaving through the blasts, returning fire with sharp precision. The woman held tight, her heart racing with every strike. The traders shouted over comms, cruel and certain. "Give her back. Human, she belongs to us." Daniel answered with fire, his shots tearing into their hulls. "She belongs to no one," he growled, his eyes burning. One ship exploded in flames, but 2 pressed harder. They struck the wing, alarms blaring, sparks filling the cabin. The woman cried out, but Daniel's hands never left the controls. "Hold on," he said, his voice like steel. The enemy boarded with force, a hatch blown open, shadows flooding inside. Alien guards rushed forward, weapons drawn, their eyes full of hunger. The woman froze, fear gripping her chest, the memory of chains alive again. But Daniel stood between her and them, weapon raised. The fight was brutal, close and desperate. Daniel fired. The aliens fell, but more kept coming. The woman grabbed a loose pipe, striking one who lunged at her. Her fear turned to fire, survival burning in her blood. At last, the hall was silent, bodies scattered, smoke rising. Daniel stood wounded, a cut across his arm, his breath heavy. The woman rushed to him, tears in her eyes. "You cannot fight them all." He looked at her, his voice low but strong. "I will fight until you are free." Another ship fired, shaking the vessel, alarms screaming again. Daniel pulled her close, his voice rough. "You must choose now. Run with me, or let them take you back." Her heart pounded, her mind spinning, but deep inside she knew the answer. She met his eyes, firm and clear. "I choose you." Together they moved, Daniel steering the ship into the clouds. The last hunter chased them, fire raining down. The woman sat beside him, her hands steady on the panel, helping him guide the ship. Fear was still there, but it no longer ruled her. Daniel pulled a final maneuver, diving low into the storm. Lightning split the sky, hiding their path. The hunter followed, too close, too fast. A flash of light, a strike of energy, and the enemy ship broke apart. Silence filled the cabin once more. Only the storm outside remained. Daniel leaned back, exhausted, his body shaking. The woman touched his arm gently, her voice soft. "You saved me again." He shook his head, his eyes on hers. "No, we saved each other." Tears filled her eyes. But this time, they were not only from fear. She whispered, "When you bought me, I thought it was the end." Daniel smiled faintly, his voice steady. It was only the beginning. Her heart warmed, stronger than chains, stronger than fear. The storm cleared, stars opening before them, endless and bright. She leaned close, whispering words that carried more than hope. "You bought me, but you gave me freedom, and I will stay with you forever." Daniel's eyes softened, his hand closing around hers. The galaxy was still dangerous, traitors would still hunger. But they were not afraid anymore, not alone anymore. Together, they were more than prey, more than slaves. Together, they were love written in the stars.